Ian Foster is joining us, presumably from his home in Hamilton. Ian, thank you so much for your time on the program. We really, really appreciate it. Gus has been telling us about his debut week in the All Blacks environment in Argentina. For you, what was your first week like in the All Blacks environment back in 2012?
Yeah, thanks, Kirsty, and g'day, you and Gus. Nice to be on your show. First week, 2012, I guess there was a few camps and that, but the one big thing I have, we were playing Ireland at Eden Park that week, and I remember it was Monday night before our big training on Tuesday, and it was probably one of the few sleepless nights I've had as a coach when I was lying in bed thinking, okay, well, tomorrow this is for real, and I've got to go and coach Dan Carter and Ma Nonu and Conrad Smith, and what the heck am I going to teach them? So you get a little bit of, you go through that sort of nervous anxiety even when you coach them, because some of the players that we're working with are outstanding in their own right, and so you got to go along there and really back yourself and try to figure out how to add value. So that was probably my one sleepless night as a coach.
It's a special moment, isn't it? Whether it's for a player of the coach, adding to that All Blacks legacy. Hamilton on the weekend, 24,000 people at FMG Stadium, Waikato. Were you one of them? And what did you think of the intensity of that match?
Yeah, look, I was one of them. We actually had the whole coaching group there. We had a couple of days together doing some work for later in the year, and it was great for us to be involved. Look, it's and I think it's what we've all been craving for at super level, haven't we? It was kind of a Super Rugby game that we'd like to see more regularly, because it was two really good teams. We had a great fan base there. It was a great occasion for a whole lot of different reasons. And I think, this competition's probably, whilst it's had a couple of really big games in it, we probably need a few more of those to really get the real indication of the levels that we're at. So it was, to me, it was like a little bit of a return to the old days of Super Rugby, where we had a lot of fans there, two great teams hammering away at each other, and we got that sort of Super Rugby intensity that we've been craving for.
Fozzie, absolutely delightful to hear your voice. I'm sure you'll be stoked to hear my vibrations into your eardrums, yep. Mate.
I'm used to it, yeah.
There's been a bit of controversy with that game. I want to hear your thoughts, independent view. Was that a knock on?
Well, look, it was certainly a very tight call. Let's call it that way. And so there was no doubt that it hit his hand. It wasn't regathered. So if it's a 50-50 call, most match officials are going to go with penalising the error. And so yes, we have to see the ball propel forward, but and it looked pretty marginal. But I think the fact that it wasn't regathered and was a marginal call, it means I think you've got to back the match officials on that one. And I guess that wasn't the only call in that game, but there was it was a couple of big calls that I guess went against the Crusaders early. I thought they were extremely lucky to get that penalty try, because it looked to me like Cullen Grace actually pulled down Luke Jacobson in that maul, and he was the one who got yellow carded. So I think it went both ways.
Yeah, you could see the surprised and confused look on Luke's face as he was getting picked out with that yellow card. But I suppose, you talked about where Super Rugby's at, and I want to talk about, obviously the Chiefs, being a Chiefs man, and you're a former Chiefs player. Who's been, exciting you? They're 9 from 9. They're going pretty well.
Well, I think they're going really well. And, it's a testimony to them, because they've, still have a few boys that aren't playing, one of which is, now a radio announcer. And obviously with Anton, we've got Josh Lord, who's just slowly coming back. So they've still got a little bit of firepower to come back in. I just like the way they play. They're playing with massive energy. I think they've developed a really sound kicking game and a territory game that potentially the Chiefs haven't been overtly strong in the past, and I thought that was a massive difference on the game on Saturday night. The length of the Chiefs game between Damien and some of their other kickers, they are sort of playing a really good territory game, and it probably was something that frustrated the Crusaders a little bit. But it's a credit to the Chiefs, because I thought the Crusaders put them under massive pressure, particularly in that first half. And, you know, would have felt a little bit unlucky to go in behind. But that's what big games are about.
Fozzie, I just wanted to ask you more about Damien McKenzie. Awesome news that he's re-signed with New Zealand Rugby for the next couple of years, and I'm sure he's going to be part of your plans this year. Before he went to Japan, there was a massive debate going on. Is he a fullback? Is he a first five? He goes over there, plays 10 for Suntory, comes back. What difference have you seen in his game, and what position do you like him at?
Well, I said at the time, we kind of felt he was a 10. He could play 15. He took on that challenge and has really been handed that role. He wanted that role. He played for Waikato last year in the NPC, and you know he went through a few teething issues there. And I know he was frustrated with a few things, but he's really settled into that. He has improved his game management, and if you look at the depths in our 10, it's fantastic to see him playing as well as he is playing. And you've also got to remind ourselves that, you know, a couple of his big moments in the game actually came later on when he did switch to 15 and Bryn Gatlin came on, who I also thought played pretty well. So you've got an influence in the game in both positions, but the fact that he's able to, I guess, use his kicking game and his game management early in the game has been a massive positive for him and for the Chiefs. And I guess it puts he's certainly putting his hand up for us to consider.
I wanted to talk to you about a couple of other players. Everywhere I go, whether it's the gym, the supermarket, people stop me and they talk about Sean Stevenson and Amoni Narawa. Have these two made you sit up and watch what they're doing in 2023? Or who has in Super Rugby? Who's really surprised you coming into the season?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the word surprised. I think, I've mentioned those two myself the last week. I just thought they've deserved that because they really are putting their hand up. There's a number of other players. I don't kind of like to go down and name drop too much because it probably puts players under a bit too much pressure. But there have been a number of players who have put their hand up. And I guess in the case of Sean and Amoni, they've probably been the ones in bright lights, haven't they? You know, they've taken their opportunity. They're playing regularly, and really doing a good job for their franchise, and making us have a look at that. And the fact that you got Sevu Reece, who's out of contention, and it does mean that we are putting a spotlight on that space. So it's a good time to be playing well as an outside back. That's all I'd say.
Yeah, I suppose touching on not only that, but what are some other positions? You know, we don't have to name drop, but you said some players putting their hand up. Like, what's going to be the toughest positions to? Because I feel like it's probably every position really, but you know, the back row, there's some great locks running around. A few injuries at prop at the moment. How does that look for you guys?
Yeah, well, you've basically answered your own question. You've done it really good. I think
I like to help you out, Fozzie. You know, I've got your back.
Well, you always have, Gus, and you've never been short of a word here and there, which I appreciate. But no, look, I think it's like right now as a group of selectors and coaches, we've got a pretty clear idea where we're going. We're studying each week. We're looking at it. But we've also got to make sure we've got a really solid plan for the next tier of players. And you look at, already we've lost two guys from last year's squad, the end of year squad, with George Power and Sevu Reece. You've got the likes of Fixtures that's been knocked out of Super Rugby and won't be available in the Rugby Championship. And, we're looking at the timelines for him going into World Cup. So it's about just looking at the next options and making sure that we're really clear about where we go to. And overall, there's some strong positions, but, we are seeing some players, you look at nines, we've got some nines really putting their hand up and showing growth in their games, which is putting pressure on the guys that have been in the All Blacks, and that's exactly what we want. And so you've got to remember we've got two squads to pick before the World Cup. We've got a Rugby Championship squad of maybe 36 players instead of 33 for the World Cup, and we've also got an All Black 15 who are going to have 2 games in Japan. So there's plenty to play for.
I want to touch on, obviously these two squads coming in, but last time I spoke to you was on the breakdown, and you were, at a refs. What did you? A summit was it called up in the Northern Hemisphere? What was there any real clarity out of that, and will some of those rules come into Championship, or is it more just World Cup?
Yeah, it was a post Six Nations sort of alignment meeting where all the learnings from the Six Nations, all the referees who are the larger referee group before it gets cut down to the 12 for the World Cup were there, and most, if not all, of the head coaches involved in the World Cup, and we were just had 2 days just getting clarity on rulings. There's nothing new coming in. In fact, ironically, a couple of things happening in Super Rugby, which have been trials, like the defending of the 9 at scrum time, how he can't go round in super level. Well, that'll be different in test matches. It'll resort back to the rules, the world rules, which how you can come around and disrupt. So that changes the way we look at the defensive work off scrums, for example. So we're looking at one thing at super level, but it's not going to apply at test level. So another experiment that Super Rugby's doing about the TMO and handing up to the TMO to make a decision, that's caught a lot of interest, and there's a lot of debate about that. And I think that's building momentum has been a really good technique for the game to help us speed it up and hopefully also just add another layer of improvement to that decision before we give yellow and red cards. And I think that's had a positive effect on super level, and hopefully it does go through to the international level.
What are the main differences in style that you've seen? You've been at a lot of these Super Rugby games. What's the differences in style from Super Rugby level to international World Cup play? And can we play the style that we've been seeing these teams play with?
Yes, we can. And, when you go to super level, there's definitely a focus on attack. There's a focus on speed of game and tidying up, keeping space with all sidelines and getting rid of tacklers, all those little things. And I think that we're seeing a quicker product at super level right now. And that suits us. That suits us as an All Black team, and I think that's great preparation for us. One of the challenges when you get to big test matches, it often becomes harder to get some of that because teams are totally committed to slowing the game down and slowing down the time between line-outs and slowing scrum resets, and tacklers line there a little bit longer just because they know that the All Blacks want to play fast. So obviously our job is to try to stop them doing that. But secondly, we're also heavily reliant on officials to then take control of that. So it's just getting that balance of teams that like to slow us down and suffocate us, and us wanting to speed up, but we just cannot get frustrated when we don't win that battle with the ref and the opposition. We've got to be good at playing that static set-piece game for periods of games if we have to.
Just a couple more questions. You're probably like, can I go? But honestly, we're so grateful to get these insights from you on the program. So thank you so much. I saw this amazing story about your assistant coach, Jason Ryan, last week, who went back to his club in Sydenham and Christchurch. He's been testing a few things. He's been out on the park with them, and he says he wants to make sure he's sharp and he's ready to go come All Blacks time. How do you keep your skills sharp? Are there things that you're doing behind the scenes? And are there other coaches around the world, other sports that you look at for inspiration as well?
Yeah, look, there's lots of little things like that, and it wasn't. I didn't see the story, but I heard about the story about Jace. I know how much he loves his club.
Yeah,
he's into that space. I know. We've got all the coaches are in and around the franchises at the moment, and we've been sort of dissecting individuals and looking at their games. And so you're sharpening your coaching by working with each other as a group and how we go about that. And that's the primary way. And then often, I know Scott McLeod will drop into club rugby as well. You've got Fiki always in that space. You've got Joe Smith, who's vastly experienced, and he's a real analyst about how he goes about improving his coaching. So it's all about sharing thoughts on games, both here and the European games, to test what we're doing. So it's very much a period that you really grow your understanding of the game, because you're not sort of doing it day to day on the training pass. So we've got a chance to really dig deeper and make sure that we're really clear about what we're doing. So that's the primary thing. There's other things like, when up Northern Hemisphere, I was involved in a group of people involved with the EOS group, and we had a day at the Mercedes factory, talking to a lot of their high performance people, and the likes of Gareth Southgate, the English soccer coach, was there, and
Wow.
to Ben Ainsley, and you're tossing ideas around preparing athletes, when are they ready, how you go about stuff. So we get a privileged position that we can actually bounce ideas around with quite a range of people, which is, like I said, it's a privilege, but it's also great to be able to just be exposed to different thoughts.
Very cool.
Fozzie, on a lighter note, and I'll take you away from rugby, we've been asking the people, our listeners, what they would, a sporting event they'd like to win. So we'll take World Cup out of it. Obviously, we all want to win a World Cup. What's something that you reckon you'd like to win? We've had Masters, we've had a whole bunch of things.
100-metre sprint at the Olympics has been another.
It doesn't necessarily have to be what you could achieve. It's what would you like to.
Well, I'd have no hope of the 100-metre and quite frankly, I'm pretty blinkered about the Rugby World Cup. But I will put that to one side. But I read with interest Steve Alker winning the weekend, and suddenly at his age, he's pocketing $600,000 for playing good golf over the 4 days. So maybe just one of those senior golf tournaments.
Go on, maybe a live tournament. Get that money from up there.
Oh no, I think I'll go mainstream and just stick to the American circuit at the moment.
Oh, fair enough.
Oh, so good. He's won $9 million in just a couple of years. It's actually unbelievable. It's so cool. Fozzie, thank you so much for your time. As I said, we really appreciate you coming on and giving us your insights and just letting us pick your brain in a Rugby World Cup year when we know time is so precious. But we appreciate it and we thank you.